He has no face, no voice, no body, just a hand and a history darker than anyone imagined. Thing isn't a monster. He isn't a ghost. He isn't even a person. He's literally a severed hand. And somehow, he's one of the most beloved characters in the Addams universe. But Thing's story didn't start with high-five jokes or loyal sidekick energy. It began in the dark as something too horrifying to even show. Tonight, we're uncovering the secret identity of the Addams' darkest creation, tracing how this nightmare in a box became a silent guardian and why he may be far more than just a hand. Thing's first appearance wasn't a stitched-up scuttling hand. In Charles Addams' early cartoons, Thing wasn't seen at all. Charles Addams was fascinated by the hidden creepiness in ordinary life, and he took inspiration from ghost stories, bits of folklore, and even novelty songs. One of those songs, Phil Harris's 1950 hit, The Thing, told the story of a man who finds something terrifying in a box. It's speculated to have been the inspiration to give Addams the idea. He twisted that fear into something funny and made it part of his own strange household. By 1954, that thought finally took shape in his collection, Homebodies. There, Thing made its first appearance. A warning sign at the mansion's gate read, "Beware of the Thing." No one could see what was there, and that was the whole joke. At that time, Thing wasn't a severed hand. It was imagined as a full creature that was never completely shown. Was it a monster? A ghost? A pet? Thing wasn't comic relief like the rest of the Addams characters. He was unease. The implication that something, maybe something dark, was lurking out of frame. Sometimes readers saw only a wrist, sometimes just fingers curling out of a cabinet. Every glimpse suggested there was much, much more attached. And that was the point. When the Addams family moved to television, Thing had a problem. TV audiences needed to see him. Budget said, "You get one body part." So Thing became a single hand. Ted Cassidy, who also played Lurch, gave Thing life. He wasn't just a prop, he acted, pointing, shrugging, drumming, being offended. He was basically silent comedy in one limb, and audiences loved him. Thing shifted from horror to quirky charm. He became Gomez's assistant, fetching mail, lighting cigars, serving guests. Instead of lurking in darkness, he jumped into the spotlight. And suddenly, the Addams family had a breakout star. Thing also appeared in 2 animated series. The Hanna-Barbera cartoon in 1973, where he mostly popped out of boxes, and a 1992 animated revival inspired by the films. Then came the 1991 and 1993 films, and Thing leveled up. No more popping out of boxes. Now he ran. He vaulted over furniture, skidded around corners, did acrobatics. CGI and choreography turned him into an action hero, a literal hand on a mission. He became emotional, protective, almost dog-like in loyalty. He even had relationships, supporting Wednesday, helping rescue Uncle Fester, and risking it all for the family. Thing wasn't just a prop, he was family, and it set the stage for his darkest evolution yet. Netflix's Wednesday brought Thing roaring back, sewn scars, fresh stitches, a hand that looked like it had survived battles and was ready for more. He was a rogue spy, best friend, and emotional anchor. A hand with a past. When Wednesday Season 2 came out in 2025, it revealed something shocking. Thing was said to have once belonged to Isaac Knight. Morticia cut it off during an explosion while stopping Isaac from using Gomez to power a machine meant to remove his sister's hide abilities. The blast killed Isaac, and the hand reanimated into what we now know as Thing. And bound by the Addams family bloodline, Thing never left. In one interview, the creators Al Gough and Miles Miller teased that there were still disturbing details left unrevealed. This can be compared to the 1960s sitcom that once hinted at a whole family of disembodied hands working as servants in secret. Before we go deeper, we need to address something that comes up a lot. The 1960s sitcom added many one-off jokes that later adaptations ignored. A perfect example is Thing's parents. In the episode Thing is Missing, Gomez and Morticia display a portrait of Thing's mother and father, literally a male hand and a female hand. It's funny, but it's clearly a one-off joke. It's never mentioned ever again, never explored in any other version, and was never part of Charles Addams' original work. Charles Addams never provided detailed lore for his characters. He preferred keeping things mysterious and flexible rather than building strict canon. He didn't even have names for his characters until the 60s show. Charles Addams himself resisted giving the family defined origins. In the Addams Chronicles, Stephen Cox notes that Addams preferred the characters to remain mysterious and that fans were free to fill in their own details. Likewise, the 1960s TV team never treated their version as official lore. Producer Nat Perrin explained in interviews that what interested him was the perspective and humor of the family, not history or backstory, and that he approached the series as a comedy in the Marx Brothers tradition, not a literal adaptation of Charles Addams's world. Each era of the Addams family tends to rewrite and reinterpret the characters. Every adaptation adds new pieces, some serious, some comedic, and leaves others behind. When you step back and look at all the versions together, you start to see patterns in how these characters are portrayed. And those patterns are what allow us to build theories about who they really are at their core, even if the details change from one retelling to the next. Across most versions of the Addams family, Thing isn't treated as a pet or servant. He's family. So while nothing explicitly states he's physically unable to leave the Addams family, the pattern is clear. He is always with the Addamses. He serves whoever the head of household is, and he's emotionally bonded to them. Thing exists to help, warn, spy, and protect. That role only makes sense within the Addams orbit. Even when he travels, delivering letters, spying on people, running errands, he always returns home, suggesting his identity is tied to the family itself. So while no canon says Thing cannot leave, the long-running portrayal implies he is bound to the Addamses, not trapped, but belonging. For decades, Thing's existence raises more questions than answers. Maybe Thing was a familiar spirit created by an ancient witch and adopted by the Addamses to serve forever. It felt eerie, yet perfect. Maybe alchemy was what kept him alive all this time. One theory suggests the idea that Thing was a homunculus, a tiny magical being born through alchemy. People pulled from old 16th century writings who described little creatures grown inside glass flasks using mystical ingredients. Maybe Thing was created that way, born from one of the Addams experiments or a broken piece from some lost soul. His clenched fingers and curious independence supported it. He seemed alive, aware, even emotional. Then came the darker twist, the family curse theory, suggesting Thing might actually be a part of an old Addams ancestor, a loyal hand that was chopped off centuries ago and magically preserved. Some thought it was lost in a duel or caught in a guillotine accident, and the family's dark magic brought it back to life. The 2010 book, The Addams Family, an evolution added fuel to that idea. It mentioned that Thing had existed in Gomez's family since he was a child, hinting that there might have been generations of hand servants. But the creepiest theory? There are more things, other limbs, hands, feet, a scattered body, maybe still crawling, searching, and Thing is the piece that found a family. Thing's secret identity isn't who he used to be, but what he has chosen to become. A guardian, a familiar, a broken piece that learned to stand on its own. He is a blend of myths, a dismembered spirit, a reconstructed guardian, a magical familiar bound, not by spell, but by love. But what makes Thing truly dark isn't just that he's a hand. It's what that means. Because Thing is inherently unnatural. A severed body part, reanimated, thinking and acting completely on its own. His very existence tells us something horrifying. Someone died and the hand refused to. That alone is enough to make him the darkest piece of the Addams puzzle. But it gets worse. Look closely at Thing. You'll see scars and stitches crisscrossing his skin. Marks from injuries he's suffered. Wounds that have been repaired. Not once, but over and over. So who hurt him? Who patched him back together? Who tried to end him, only to watch him crawl back to life again? Someone or something wanted him destroyed, and he survived anyway. That's not just creepy, that's dark. That contradiction, lovable companion on one side, potential killer on the other, is part of what makes him so dark. Because that loyalty, it only goes one direction, to one family. But is that devotion his choice or a curse? Is he with the Addamses willingly? Is he bound to them, enslaved, resurrected to serve? And thematically, Thing represents what's left. The last piece of a body we'll never see. The fragment that survived when everything else was destroyed. We only know he's the part that lived. And that alone is both tragedy and horror. Mythology backs this up. Thing parallels several dark folk traditions. The Hand of Glory, a severed hand, reanimated for occult magic. Golems, soulless constructs brought to life to serve a master. Familiars, spirits bound to witches, silent and loyal. And ancient stories of dismembered guardians, body parts that remain to protect after death. Almost every myth that resembles Thing is rooted in something morbid, which means he fits right in. Even the way he moves is unsettling. He lives in shadows, behind doors, under beds, inside boxes, always where you don't want him to be. And while the family goes about their strange, chaotic lives, Thing is often the one who handles the aftermath. He removes bodies, cleans up messes, hides evidence, and does the things you don't talk about. He is their unseen cleanup crew, collecting secrets, burying the unmentionable, tidying up the darkness behind the scenes. And that's why he's the Addams' darkest creation. Emotionally, he shouldn't work as a character. No face, no mouth, no expression. Yet he still feels. He still emotes. He still connects. Something with no face shouldn't be able to make us laugh or cry. And yet he does. A creature that Broken shouldn't have survived at all. But he did. Because most adaptations imply this isn't his first death. He's been killed. He's been dismembered. He's been destroyed. And he lived on anyway. He's not just alive. he's undying. That makes him more than just creepy. It makes him supernatural. And maybe darkest of all, Thing embodies the trauma of survival. He is the part that remained after catastrophe. He shouldn't exist, but he does. He shouldn't move, but he does. He shouldn't feel, but he does. He is a reminder that even shattered things can keep going, even when there's almost nothing left. That's why Thing is so unsettling. Not because he's evil, but because everything about him is a horror story we never get to hear. He's not just a hand, because Thing proves something powerful. You don't need a body to have a heart. You don't need a mouth to speak volumes. You don't need a face to be a character people will love. From a nightmare in a box to a stitched-up hero saving the day, Thing has evolved more than almost any Addams, and he still has secrets left. After all, what's the rest of him been up to? Let me know in the comments which adaptation of Thing is the best, and do you think there are more Things out there, or that he's the only one? If you liked this video, be sure to check out my breakdown on Gomez Addams and why he's the scariest Addams of all. Thanks for watching.